hot.
It's 5:05 and welcome into a Tuesday edition of the Carolina Journal News Hour. News Talk 1110 99.3 WBT. I'm Nick Craig. Good morning to you. Well, North Carolina lawmakers in Raleigh today are scheduled to debate a bill that would ban social media accounts for children under 14 years old and require parental permission for children who are 14 and 15. Many social media companies that own their own platforms, such as TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, say they already have a minimum age, which is typically 13 to create an account. That, of course, is in compliance with federal law. But some children can easily get around those restrictions, both with and without their parents' consent, and many younger children still have and use social media accounts. Well, that's where House Bill 301 comes into the equation. It would hold the social media companies responsible for stopping them, with the state fining the platforms up to $50,000 for each time a younger teen slips through the cracks and is able to set up their own account against the rules. Families of those teens would also be allowed to sue the companies personally over the violations for up to $10,000. The bill is scheduled for a hearing in the House committee today. Lobbyists from companies that own TikTok and Facebook did not provide comments on the proposal last week when it was brought forward. The use of social media among teens is nearly universal in the United States as well as many other parts of the world. Up to 95% of individuals 13 to 17 years old in the United States report using at least one social media platform, with more than one-third saying they use social media, quote, almost consistently. Those details coming out of a Pew Research study conducted last year. Not all websites in which people can interact with each other are subject to the ban. Email sites, news websites, as well as comment sections and others, such as apps that allow people to share texts, photos, or individuals or videos with individuals or groups, but not publicly, would be exempt from the ban. Apps like Telegram and Signal, some of those been in the news as of late, would not fall under this restriction. Social media companies that have been targeted by North Carolina officials in the past, North Carolina and 32 other states last year sued Meta Platforms Incorporated, that of course, the owner of Facebook and Instagram, alleging that the social media company had contributed to the youth mental health crisis by knowingly designing features on Instagram and Facebook's platforms to addict children to its platforms. Democrat Governor Josh Stein was the state's attorney general when the lawsuit was filed, and as governor, he would have to sign off on any North Carolina bill restricting social media use. When the lawsuit was filed, Stein said that Meta lied to parents about the risks of its social media platform and the risk that it posed against their children. Meta said at the time that it was committed to providing teens with a safe online experience and that it was continuing to introduce more than 24 tools to support teens and their families. Some measures the social media platforms have taken to address concerns about children's mental health can easily be circumvented as well. TikTok introduced a default 60-minute time limit for younger users last year, individuals under the age of 18, but it was very simple for users to simply enter a passcode to keep watching after that limit was reached. This will be in front of a House committee today in the North Carolina General Assembly. For those keeping track at home, it is House Bill 301. We will keep a very close eye on it right here on the Carolina Journal News Hour and, of course, on our website, carolinajournal.com, where it's now 5:09. News Talk 1110 99.3 WBT. Keeping our attention on Western North Carolina this morning. Yesterday, we chatted about a $1.4 billion grant requested from Democrat Governor Josh Stein from HUD to help with the recovery efforts in Western North Carolina. And we've got a new update this morning on some of the road work that continues in the western half of our state. To get us up to date on that, Teresa Opeka joins us from carolinajournal.com. Teresa, lots of stuff moving out of Western North Carolina. However, we do have some good news in regards to the roads this morning. What are you learning there?
Yes, we do. Good morning, Nick. So NCDOT gave out a press release. It's a 6-month mark, if you will, about since Hurricane Helene hit. They wanted to give that update. They have reopened 90% of the roads damaged by the hurricane. So that is definitely some good news. In addition, crews have repaired or replaced 270 bridges and 870 culverts. So really some good news for the people in Western North Carolina after such devastating losses. And you're being cut off from the rest of the world if your roadway shuts down, especially in a very rural area. It's not like you have a major highway going through. Sometimes it's small roads, and if you're getting cut off on both sides, that's a lot. So this is definitely some good news for those people.
Well, speaking of major roadways, we learned back just a couple of weeks ago that in some form Interstate 40 has reopened. It's reduced speed. It's just one lane in each direction. But Teresa, to the credit of DOT crews, which are not necessarily individuals always in favor in the likes of North Carolina individuals as they drive around and see construction cones all over our major interstates, they've really put a lot of time in over the last 6 months to get these projects and get a lot of these roads rebuilt and reopened.
Oh, they have. They've done a tremendous job. And you mentioned about I-40. It's open in one lane in each direction, but it's a critical connection for people, not only for, like, say, long distance truckers, but also the people in that area that are crossing over to Tennessee. It's just a phenomenal job they've done for that. And NCDOT said you could see on a drive through Pigeon River Gorge shows that devastating damage and all the different efforts NCDOT has put in, as well as the partners have worked with them. They didn't do everything on their own. They had other partners, I think, from Kentucky and from other people as well that did help out, but as they say, there's much more work to be done as well. But a great job so far.
Well, let's talk about some of that work to be done. Good update you're providing us this morning. Crews continuing to chug along. What do we look at 6, 8, 12 months from now, Teresa? What else is kind of on the agenda there?
Yeah, so going through the story, they, like I said, they have reopened a lot of roads. They've gotten, temporary roads up and then running up to hopefully semi-permanent. But they're still working on some temporary bridges, put in stuff of that nature, and culverts, working on that. There's also more permanent repairs in the works. Either it's in the planning or design stage or some other stage at this point, or already under construction. They also have entered into what they call alternative delivery contracts. That's going to restore critical corridors in Yancey and Mitchell counties through Bat Cave, Chimney Rock, and also for the I-40 in the Gorge. And they're also going to continue to have public meetings, which people can find out more information and also give their feedback. So that goes back to the engineers who are fine-tuning plans for repairs. And, just a lot more work to be done, but a lot has been accomplished.
Now, Teresa, you're talking about work that DOT is doing, and that, of course, lends itself to public roads and bridges. One of the big underreported stories of the devastation from Hurricane Helene is all of the private roads. There's so much private land, so many private bridges and culverts throughout the western half of the state that individuals are on the hook for personally to get rebuilt. I know there's been discussions about getting some federal money in for those private roads. There's a lot of work that's still going to go on there that's not even reported because it's not under the DOT's jurisdiction.
That's right. That's right. As you mentioned, like the Western North Carolina, the mountains there's so many smaller communities. Like you say, it's under the radar. So yeah, they're going to have a tough time ahead. Hopefully they can get some funding or some help in some way. But as you mentioned, they're privately owned roads and being cut off from a lot of different people. It's a main line for these people that, that they need this help. So yeah, you're right. It is a very underreported story.
Teresa, you've got some additional details in your story this morning. Where can folks go and read some of those?
They can head on over to carolinajournal.com.
It's a great update this morning. Teresa Opeka from carolinajournal.com joins us on the Carolina Journal News Hour. It's now 5:14, News Talk 1110, 99.3 WBT. Time to get a look at the roadways on this Tuesday morning, hopefully without any April Fool's jokes. A look with Boomer Von Cannon.
You got it, Nick. No joking here.
It's 521. Welcome back to the Carolina Journal News Hour. News Talk 1110, 99.3 WBTE. We're heading back to Heist Brewery and Barrel Arts on Wednesday, April the 16th. From 7 to 9 p.m. for WBT's News and Brews, and we'd love to see you there. All of your WBT friends will be in attendance to raise a glass with you and talk about pretty much anything that's on your mind. It's WBT's News and Brews headed your way Wednesday, April the 16th at Heist Brewery and Barrel Arts. Visit WBT.com this morning for tickets and event details. Taking a look at some other stories that we are tracking this morning on the Carolina Journal News Hour, 2 North Carolina cities have cracked the top 30 in WalletHub's first annual Happiest Cities in America report. The rankings were determined by using 29 different metrics to determine happiness, with Raleigh coming in at 22nd and Durham at 29th, leading the way for North Carolina. Key factors, according to WalletHub, include emotional and physical well-being, income and employment, as well as community and events. While it's often said that money can't buy happiness, the survey found that individuals earning over $75,000 a year reached a happiness plateau, with additional income having very little impact on their overall happiness. WalletHub analyst Chris Lupo said, quote, "Research shows that having more money only increases your happiness until you're making at least $75,000 per year. Anything more than that you likely earn won't likely have a major impact. Therefore, when deciding where to live to maximize your happiness, you'll want to pick a city that offers more than just a decent average income. The ideal city provides conditions that foster good mental and physical health, like reasonable work hours, short commutes, good weather, and caring neighbors." 4 other North Carolina cities ranked in the top 150. Charlotte cracked that at 52. Winston-Salem was at 110. Greensboro 116. And Fayetteville bottomed the list there at 150. A WalletHub study last year ranked the happiest states in America, with North Carolina landing in the middle of the pack at 24th. And back in 2022 and 2023, CNBC ranked North Carolina as the top state for business in the United States. That study also included data on quality of life, with North Carolina placing 28th in the life, health, and inclusion category in 2022. And 34th in the same study in 2023. So happiness continues to be a interesting statistic to look at. You can read additional details on this WalletHub study by visiting our website this morning, carolinajournal.com. We've got a nice interactive map there in the story that'll show you all of the cities and where they rank on, I believe they did about 180 or so cities, and a couple of North Carolina cities cracking the top of that list, both Raleigh and Durham top 30, 22 for Raleigh, 29 for Durham. Taking a look at some other statewide news this morning, a private law enforcement agency, Allied Universal Security Services, AUS, is urging the North Carolina Supreme Court to reject a petition from Charlotte news reporter Nick Oxner, who seeks the names and addresses of 2 security guards involved in a fatal 2023 shooting. The North Carolina Court of Appeals previously denied Oxner's request in a 2-1 ruling back at the beginning of last month, March the 5th. In response, Oxner petitioned the state's highest court, arguing that private law enforcement agencies, which wield the same authority as public police, your local city police, your local sheriff's department, should be subject to the same public disclosure requirements. Ally Universal contends that the requested information is protected under public record laws governing criminal investigations, and that Oxner has already received all of the documents to which he is entitled to receive. The company argues that this case is a narrow dispute rather than a matter of broad legal significance warranting a Supreme Court review and discussion and decision potentially from the state's highest court. The case stems from a September 2023 incident in which 2 Allied Universal guards responded to a trespassing complaint at a Charlotte commercial site, The trespassers allegedly fired a gun at the guards while fleeing, leading to the guards returning fire and a fatal shooting. The Charlotte-Mecklenburg police then were called onto the scene to investigate. It is important to note that no arrests were made in that case. Oxner's appeal has sparked a debate over transparency obligations of private law enforcement agencies, and the appeals court ruling was split along party lines, with 2 Republican judges upholding the decision to withhold the guards' identities while a Democrat judge dissented, arguing for greater public access to those records. So this continues to be a very interesting story to track, as well as, of course, public transparency continues to be a major topic. We'll continue to track those details as well right here on CarolinaJournal.com. Well, as we talked about as we headed into this week, it is expected to be a very busy week in the North Carolina General Assembly. Taking a look at the legislative calendar for this Tuesday, April the 1st, it is jam-packed with committee meetings taking place not only today and tomorrow. That is all because of a Thursday deadline. Last week, we talked about details out of the North Carolina Senate. Tuesday last week was the day in which all final Senate bills had to have been brought forward and read on the floor of the North Carolina Senate, and that deadline is coming up Thursday in the North Carolina House. Dozens of subcommittees have meetings today. There's some rather interesting ones that will be taking place. Commerce and Economic Development will be meeting today. There is some other select committees that will be meeting as well, dealing with things like government efficiency, that will also be meeting today. As we look at the calendar for tomorrow, some press conferences taking place as well. Housing and Development has a subcommittee meeting, so you are going to see a lot coming out of the General Assembly coming here in the next couple of days. One of the big ones, eliminating DEI in public education. That's a Senate committee meeting that's happening tomorrow. We'll be tracking all of the details on our website, CarolinaJournal.com, and of course pass them along to you as soon as we get those details right here on the Carolina Journal News Hour, where it's now 5:28, News Talk 1110, 99.3 WBT. Time to get another look at the roadways on your Tuesday morning. A look at traffic with Boomer Von Cannon.
Thank you, Nick.
It's 5:35. Welcome back to the Carolina Journal News Hour. News Talk 1110, 99.3 WBT. Keeping an eye on some wildfires that continue to burn in western North Carolina. As we reported yesterday morning, the Bat Cove fire fortunately is 100% contained. That was the smallest of the major three that the North Carolina Forest Service was fighting in western North Carolina. 199 acres there, all burning on private property in Polk County. Crews have got that 100% contained. However, two other major fires, with the Black Cove fire, which started on March 19th, and the Deep Woods fire, which started on March 20th. These things have been burning for quite some time now. Black Cove was reported after a downed power line took place on March the 19th. That is currently burning over 3,500 acres on a mix of both state and private property in the Green River Gorge, and currently sits at 36% containment as of the last details with the North Carolina Forest Service. They updated that yesterday afternoon. And the larger Deep Woods fire has burned right around a little over 3,900 acres, and that is all on state-owned land. That is at 32% containment as of yesterday morning as well, and the cause of that fire still unreported as of this morning. However, those three fires did gain some significant growth just in the first couple of days, ballooning to more than 3,000 acres. Fortunately, crews for the most part have been able to contain the size of those fires, even though they do sit in the mid to upper 30s in regards to containment. Some rain and wind did move through the area yesterday afternoon. Have not received a new report from the Forest Service since those conditions moved through, and we'll continue to track those details over on our website, carolinajournal.com, and right here on the Carolina Journal News Hour, where it's now 5:37. News Talk 1110, 99.3 WBT. Ballot selfies. It's something that we've talked about a couple of times over the last few months here on the Carolina Journal News Hour. We've got an update this morning to walk us through those details. Mitch Kokai from the John Locke Foundation joins us. Mitch, taking a picture of you and your ballot has caused some controversy here in North Carolina. Walk us through some of the details this morning.
Remember, Nick, it's actually illegal to take a picture of a completed ballot in your ballot enclosure in North Carolina. And a libertarian voter in Wake County who was a candidate for state senate in the 2024 election season actually wants to challenge that. What happened is that back in the primary season in 2024, Susan Hogarth took a picture of her completed ballot in the ballot enclosure, posted it on social media. Then she got a letter from election officials saying you might be in violation of state law by doing this. And so in August of 2024, Hogarth filed a lawsuit challenging ballot selfies. She's working with a public interest law firm that has been challenging these types of laws in states across the country. And basically the idea is, hey, this is fighting our constitutional right to free expression, to show people how I voted. And so what happened for the general election was a federal court said there couldn't be any prosecution of Susan Hogarth if she wanted to take steps to publicize her ballot for the general election, which she did. She took another ballot selfie during early voting. Then she filed some more paperwork in early November that said that while she was involved in taking the ballot selfie, once again, a local election official came up to her and said, look, you can't do that. You're not supposed to do that. And she said, I have a court order that's protecting me. And so the official backed off. But the latest development in this case, which just came out on Friday and we publicized on Carolina Journal this week, is that the federal judge overseeing this case has rejected attempts from most of the defendants in the case to have the lawsuit dismissed. The lawsuit was filed against members and the board itself of the State Board of Elections, the Wake County Board of Elections, where Susan Hogarth lives, also the Wake County District Attorney Lauren Freeman, and the State Attorney General. At the time, it was Josh Stein. Now it's Jeff Jackson. The court order released Jeff Jackson from the case, saying that he's too far removed from a prosecution of this law to have him be the actual defendant. But all the other defendants in the case, the judge said, no, this lawsuit can continue against you. You can't have it thrown out. So the Wake County Board of Elections, North Carolina Board of Elections, DA Lauren Freeman, Judge Louise Wood Flanagan rejected all of their arguments to have the case thrown out. And Susan Hogarth can continue to challenge this law and potential prosecution against her for sharing her photos of her ballot, so it's interesting to see where this goes from here.
Mitch, as I understand it, the law as it is right now is meant to block individuals from potentially paying somebody to vote a certain way. The idea is that if you're going to pay me to vote a certain way, I can snap a picture of that and prove to you before you pay me. Is that really what some of this roots around here in the state?
Yeah, that really is the justification for it, is that in vote buying schemes, the only way that you can guarantee that your vote buying scheme pays off is if the person you're paying for the vote takes the photo of the ballot, says, here, I voted the way you wanted, now pay me. So that's the justification. But these laws have been challenged now in states across the country, saying that, look, if someone really wants to show other people how they voted, that's a case of free expression. It's the type of thing that's constitutionally protected. If you want to fight vote buying, you can do it in other ways rather than banning someone who voluntarily wants to post the evidence of their ballot from doing that. Now, of course, one thing that this suit is not trying to fight is someone taking a photo of someone else's ballot, because
Sure.
ballot secrecy is important if you want your ballot to be secret. But if you don't care about your ballot being secret and want to share with other people how you vote, the lawsuit is saying that people should be able to have that right of free expression. It's very interesting to see that this suit has gotten some national attention. Susan Hogarth is just one voter in Wake County, a Libertarian candidate for office, but she is working with the national group that's been fighting this and trying to make sure that ballot selfie restrictions aren't in place anywhere in the country. North Carolina is just their latest testing ground.
Mitch, you rattled off some of the defendants in this case, high-profile individuals and groups, the State Board of Elections, Wake County Board of Elections. Where do we go from here now that the judge has said, well, we're not going to dismiss all of these claims just proactively?
Now, there is another chance for these defendants to have the case thrown out, because the first basis was, does she even have the right to sue us? Is there standing here? And basically, that first hurdle has been cleared. There are going to be other potential grounds to have the case thrown out. And so the defendants will have a few more weeks to file paperwork asking for any other reasons to have the case thrown out. If not, if this lawsuit withstands any motion to dismiss, then the next thing would be discovery. I mean, maybe there will be a potential settlement. There could even be legislative action. If legislators look at this and say, this is silly, let's just get rid of the law, then the lawsuit would go away. But if the law stands, if the General Assembly takes no action, if the suit survives any other motions to dismiss, then you would go through discovery and have a trial and have arguments for and against. And at some point, potentially maybe before the 2026 election, we would get some sort of resolution about whether ballot selfies are something that people can do or whether it's something that's going to stay in North Carolina's law books.
Something that we'll keep an eye on. A great update this morning. Mitch Kokai from the John Locke Foundation joins us on the Carolina Journal News Hour. Where it's now 5:44, News Talk 1110, 99.3 WBT. Another look at traffic this morning. Let's get an update with Boomer Von Cannon.
Hey, thanks, Nick. Station.
Hot. WBT and Tommy D Productions presents George Norrie Live, heading your way Saturday, April the 19th from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Booth Playhouse in Charlotte. The legendary George Norrie from Coast to Coast AM will lead an interactive evening featuring special guests Vincent Jania, Samantha Fay, and Danian Brinkley. The show will include questions and answers from George as well as his guests, alongside a salute to our country's military veterans and first responders, and George will even sing some songs from a live band. To top it off, Bo Thompson and Pete Callender will be there to say hello. It's all presented in part locally by Monica the Medium at the Healing Tree Boutique, who will also be on site offering readings for a special price. It's George Norrie Live, Saturday, April the 19th at the Booth Playhouse. Visit WBT.com this morning for tickets and event details. It's 5:22. Welcome back to the Carolina Journal News Hour. News Talk 1110, 99.3 WBT. Tracking some statewide news this morning, 6 months now removed from Hurricane Helene and the devastation in western North Carolina, the North Carolina Department of Transportation, NCDOT, has continued to make significant progress in repairing roads and bridges that were heavily damaged or in some cases destroyed by that storm. According to a press release from DOT, they have reopened 90% of roads damaged by the hurricane, with crews having repaired or replaced over 270 bridges and 870 culverts. NCDOT gave an update earlier in the year in January on the progress they'd made since the storm and have accomplished a lot since then. One of the biggest, of course, being the reopening of Interstate 40, which connects North Carolina to Tennessee. The highway reopened in the month of March to one lane in each direction. The reopening provides a critical connection to residents in both states and a better route for long-distance truckers and drivers to transport goods despite slight delays as traffic merges into one lane, and there are some decreased speed limits in those areas. NCDOT said that a drive through Pigeon River Gorge shows the devastating damage, the remediation efforts of NCDOT and its partners, as well as the work that continues to lie ahead. NCDOT Division 14 engineer Wesley Grindstaff said, quote, "We are happy to have I-40 open and operating in a limited capacity. And we also know that tons, literally thousands of tons of work remains to restore Interstate 40 completely. Our employees and our contractors are up to the challenge for the benefit of our residents and interstate commerce." Crews worked straight through the typical winter weather season in the mountains with limited daylight and frigid temperatures most of the time. On some days, NCDOT crews worked on Helene repairs in the morning with snow and ice, and then later on in the day when temperatures were recovering into the 30s and 40s. NCDOT Division 11 engineer Michael Poe said, quote, "We knew right away when this storm hit that we were all needing to do everything that we could to get these roads ready for the winter. Our crews did a great job in the fall, and the winter was indeed very much a challenge. With spring now coming in, we're really excited about the next 6 months and what we'll accomplish in that time frame." I-40, of course, one of the several corridors in the region where current conditions are temporary. In Yancey County, highways along the Toe, Cane, and other rivers see drivers on them daily. Like the temporary road from Bat Cave to Chimney Rock, the roadways have gone from gravel paths, then expanded to one-lane gravel roads, and are now topped with pavement and line markings that are now wide enough for 2 trucks to pass side by side. In other areas, temporary bridges or culverts, including more than 40 locations where former rail cars had been repurposed as bridges, providing residents with much-needed access. DOT engineer Poe said, quote, "We've been working hard over the winter to get bridges designed and ready for construction, and you'll see that over the next few months. We'll start seeing some of these projects get off the ground." Additional permanent repairs are in the works. Those are either in the planning or design, or in even some cases already under construction. NCDOT entered into an alternative delivery contract to restore critical corridors in Yancey and Mitchell counties through areas like Bat Cave and Chimney Rock, as well as I-40 in the Gorge area that were just completely wiped off the map. Public meetings do continue to be held to inform residents about recovery efforts and receive their feedback, which, according to DOT officials, they say will help guide engineers as they fine-tune their path for resilient repairs. DOT engineer Tim Anderson said lives were forever changed by this storm. Local NCDOT staff, DOT staff from other divisions, and our contract partners have completed a great deal of emergency repairs, and we will not stop. So some great updates to pass along this morning as DOT continues all of that hard work over in western North Carolina. We've got some videos and pictures in our article this morning over at carolinajournal.com. That's going to do it for a Tuesday edition. WBT News is next, followed by Good Morning BT. We're back with you tomorrow morning, 5 to 6, right here on News Talk 1110 and 99.3 WBT.